The Battle of Košare was fought during the Kosovo War between the FR Yugoslav forces and the Kosovo Liberation Army, the latter supported by the NATO and Albanian army. The battle was fought around Košare on the border between FR Yugoslavia and Albania from the 9th of April until the 10th of June during the NATO bombing of FR Yugoslavia. The point of attack from the Albanian side was a land invasion of Kosovo and the cutting off of the communications of the Yugoslav army between the forces in Prizren and Đakovica. Another goal was the taking of the region of Metahijar. After days of heavy fighting, the Yugoslav army kept the KLA from advancing into Kosovo. KLA insurgents managed to take the Košare outpost following a massive artillery barrage by the Albanian army and NATO bombardment of strategic sites held by the Yugoslavs. Attack. On the 9th of April 1999, at 300, an artillery barrage began from the Albanian side of the border, aimed in the direction of the Košare military outpost, which was occupied by the Yugoslav army. The Albanians attacked in three directions. The first was towards Raza Košare, the second was towards the well-defended Košare outpost, and the third was towards Maya Glava. During the artillery bombardment, approximately 1,500 KLA militants reached the border unspotted. At that time less than 200 members of the Yugoslav army were stationed at the front line. Bloody fighting ensued and lasted the whole day with heavy losses on Albanian side. Later, the KLA seized the peak of Raza Košare and immediately began entrenching themselves. The battle continued all night until the next morning. Then, with massive artillery support, the KLA took Maya Glava and continued to bombard the Košare outpost, which resulted in the Yugoslav soldiers having to abandon the posts. At 1900, members of the KLA entered the abandoned outpost, and CNN and the British BBC broadcast images of a great number of KLA militants taking the outpost. Members of the Yugoslav army then retreated towards the second line of defense above the outpost. Those positions were much more easier to defend. The next day, Yugoslav reserve troops arrived to relieve the First Army. One batch of KLA soldiers managed to cut the Yugoslav army line of communications, and managed to damage one BOV vehicle. During the night, the KLA attacked the Yugoslav army at Hopi Jaz, trying to shatter the resistance of the Yugoslav soldiers. But all of the attacks were unsuccessful and resulted in the Yugoslav army inflicting heavy losses on the KLA insurgents. The next day, the KLA tried to break the resistance of the second defensive line of the Yugoslav army, with little success. Meanwhile, the Yugoslavs managed to bring in their special forces and also a few artillery pieces. Reorganization of Yugoslav positions and counterattack. Albanian army and KLA artillery continued to shell the Yugoslav army's positions from Maya Glava and Raza Košare. The Yugoslav army headquarters decided to launch a sudden attack and surprise the enemy. On April 14, Yugoslav troops attacked Maya Glava. The distance between the two enemy trenches wasn't longer than 50 meters. The Yugoslav army was unable to take Maya Glava completely, but it prevented the Albanians' artillery from engaging them from their positions. The Maya Glava front was stabilized until the end of the war, without any changes on the lines. In April, there weren't any changes on the front lines at Raza Košare, and both sides suffered heavy losses. Many Yugoslav soldiers were killed by the non-stop artillery bombardment, while many KLA soldiers were killed in numerous unsuccessful attempts to break the Yugoslav lines of defense. May at Košare. May began with several unsuccessful attacks by the Yugoslav army to take back the Košare outpost. The attacks were made unsuccessful because of the constant artillery fire aimed at their positions. On the 6th of May, the Yugoslav army counterattacked at Raza Košare, in an effort to halt the artillery bombardment. A bloody skirmish ensued, but the Yugoslav army did not manage to take Raza Košare. On 10 May, the Yugoslav army sent 2 T-55 tanks to help stabilize the offensive on Košare. When the tanks penetrated the KLA's lines, they managed to gain over 100 meters of insurgent-held territory. But the KLA still managed to retain control of Košare. During the night between the 10th and the 11th of May, NATO bombers dropped dozens of bombs on the Yugoslav troops who had attacked KLA positions under Košare. In these attacks, NATO killed 8 Yugoslav soldiers and 1 officer and managed to wound over 40. The KLA seized the opportunity to attack and fought the Yugoslav soldiers out of their positions and forced them back. During the middle of May, many bloody skirmishes were fought at Mrcaj, which was eventually taken by the Yugoslav army. After the Yugoslavs had inflicted some casualties on the insurgents, the KLA had to retreat from their positions, giving the Yugoslavs the chance to take the now undefended position. On the 22nd of May, NATO aircraft mistakenly bombed KLA positions, killing 67. Aftermath. The Kosovo War lasted until the 10th of June. The Kumanovo Agreement was signed and the Yugoslav army, paramilitaries and police forces had to pull out of Kosovo. The KFOR entered Kosovo as a peacekeeping force. The KLA was, under the terms of the Kumanovo Treaty, disarmed and disbanded. However, many of its members left Kosovo and joined Albanian organizations in the insurgency in the Presevo Valley and insurgency in the Republic of Macedonia.